Welcome, everybody. It has been a long and awaited time, but we're back. And in this episode, we're going to be covering a little bit of Classroom of the Elite. It's a sleeper anime to me, but I was able to check it out scrolling through Crunchyroll. By the way, amazing top tier app for those, of course, who is into anime. And I would like to also add, if you are into thrillers, mysteries, supernatural, all that stuff, go under the thriller browse section. It is like by far the best decision I made. I will cover and foreshadow another episode within that. With that being said, this anime is just like top tier. It gives me all of the awesome love and just it completely stimulates the mind. And I love animes like that make me think and do all that, do everything. Every episode leads up to so much anticipation of what's going to come in the next episode. There are some things that I really wasn't too fond of. And I say too fond of. It was like a couple of like baby fillers, but it was, for the most part, it kept up with like a decent pace, and you just never knew what was coming out of it. So with that being said, this will be a heavy spoiler review, only because this sat within a small 3-season little kick here. It was good. I want to say each season ranges between 11 to 13 episodes a piece. I want to say like probably 12 or 13 a piece, but it brings such good it's such interactivity with the mind, and it keeps you going. It makes it to where you think there's always something coming around, and then when they do the exposition drops, like usually in episode 2 later, after a climatic event takes place, you get to see what happened behind the scenes and something you didn't even expect. So I would definitely say it's worth the watch. So let's go straight into it and let's talk about it. It's really good. So Classroom of the Elite is, of course, a Japanese anime that brings out a lot of different elements within Japanese culture, with how they handle schooling, and I say with how they handle schooling, with you just see the element of like a carefree version of Japanese schooling. So in this high school within Tokyo, it's actually called the Tokyo Metropolitan Advanced Nurturing School, which teaches students how to be independent, and teaches them how to break down and become adults early. Mind you, this is a high school, by the way. This is what's crazy. And we closely follow Kiyotaka Yanakoji and because we'll just call him the MC. He's like the main character that we follow throughout most of it. There's a bunch of supporting characters, but we really hang out within Ayana Koji's life and his decisions and what he does throughout the whole anime. And the way it kicks off, they dive in with a lot of different things and different elements, like the whole competition matter. You have a bunch of different classes distributed between first years all the way up until the graduating class, and they're broken down between letters and ranging from A to D, and D's being the worst class and actually known as defective. And then you have C, B, and A, and of course A being the highest, and each class are competing to be class A. And while they do these kind of things, they open up with a very sadistic way of handling things. As a kid, if you're given the option to have like a bunch of money and you're just told to do whatever, you're just like, wow, this is crazy. I'm about to just go like blow all my money anywhere. I'm going to go buy the newest clothes, newest gear, newest electronics. Just buy whatever I would like to buy. Well, that is what Class D is faced, or really Class A through D is faced with this. As soon as the story opens up, all the children are sitting in class, and their teacher is like placed onto them the rules, and not really the rules. It's almost kind of like really obscured, very vague, where they're just told, we're giving you 100,000 yen every month. And the crazy part is, yes, they'll give them 100,000 yen every month, but the catch is their grades, their behavior. There's a lot of things taken into account leading up to the next month to get them their allotment of their allowance. And that is something that was not told to them at the beginning. So all these kids are spending all their money, and the next thing you know, the next month rolls around, and then they're hit with not being able to receive the next amount. So that was like the first start of where the psychological mind game of this school actually takes a toll on all the students, because they're now met with having to be adults and budget and stuff like that, and like improve their behavior or improve their class production and their academics, just to be able to maintain being able to receive their allowance just to live. And you see a lot of things happen in like real life situations. When you spend so much money, you have to sell things or barter or do just about whatever to get some things. But enough of that. We'll get to the characters that we met immediately as things open up. Of course, Kiyotaka. We end up running into him as him being the MC, and a very standoffish girl, Suzune Horikita. And then we're also met with the like very loving Kikyo Kushida. And it is so wild, because this is where we're starting at, and things take a complete dip as we see character development. And what we end up seeing is, to give a little backstory on each one's, Suzune Horikita also being very standoffish. She's very high aptitude, but she closely tries to follow and rival her older brother Manabu Horikita, and she falls flat so much by trying to follow and like mimic him, to where she ends up going through a psychological torture, as she's able to. She has so much potential, but she's so much trying to be just like her brother that she can't really embody and be herself, kind of a situation. It's one of those things. And then the bad thing about Horikita is that she's so standoffish in her journey to try to be just like her brother. She doesn't care to make friends, so she's very brash, rude, doesn't want to do much of anything, or like do much anything that has to do with other people. And she just seems to push people off a lot more than anything. And the reason why we're covering so much about her is she has, of course, you have all those pivotal people that go through those dynamic changes. And she has by far one of the most dynamic changes in the show, of going over the course of the 3 seasons that are there. She has probably the most character development out of everybody. And we end up seeing the character development of Kiyotaka. He goes through like something. I would hate to even say character development. We actually just see who he is towards the end of season 1, mainly. Season 2, it starts to ramp up as to who he really is. And the third, Kikyo Kushida, she has the craziest development, like almost like instantly. I want to say in episode 3 or 4, everything changes for her, and we actually know what's going on. So we're going to dive into those 3 main plots there of each character, the main characters, and then we'll just cover a few of the supporting characters, give a little tiny list, and I'll give a little tiny backstory of each one, and then maybe a little bit of a piece of their story in the anime, and then we'll jump straight into more of what we're seeing from season to season, and then move forward from there. So we'll go ahead and start off with Kiyotaka and cover a little bit about him and where we're going with his story all the way up until season 3. And we'll and try to give as best coverage of each character all the way up until their season 3 selves. So with Kiyotaka, we have a very, very modest, very standoffish as well, and he seems to like not really be much of anything. And the way he introduces himself at the beginning, in episode 1, when they're going around the class, and doing the introduction, he gives the most basic, flat falling, just everything about him is just like basic, or as people would say, mid. He's just not much of anything. And in these animes, we start to realize that when somebody's like super modest and humble, there's something that's a little extra, like we know what's going to happen to him, kind of thing. What ends up happening to Kiyotaka is he ends up showing and producing only subpar grades, and he's also very careful with how he allows for himself to be presented, and he comes off as very, I guess you can say, he's very unnoticed. Like, he makes it to where he stays underneath the radar and does not become anything else other than just like you could say an NPC. He's fine with being the backup character, like nothing too much, nothing too great. And with that being said, everything changes about him once we find out a little bit more about him. When we come to find out he's part of this white room experiment, where it's this facility with a bunch of children that are super high intellect, and he's like the prodigy child who's the top tier of all those children. And when we see this, and once we start to learn about him, we find out he's not he's still the humble and most awesome person ever, but we see that there's a sadistic side of him where he really does not care about people at all. He's more or less a machine. People are his pawns. He doesn't really care for a lot of things that have to do with just the human like affection. He doesn't feel that. So you see all of his exchanges with like even Horikita, Kikyo Kushida, and just a lot of Ichinose, and I can't even remember her name right now. Kurizawa, like that. It's crazy on how everything is displaced amongst all of that. And with him being such like not really a pivotal, he's like more like the gaslighter and the one behind the scenes that make a lot of these things go on, and he keeps the wheels turning, and he is the one who really controls everything that happens with Class D and their journey through Classroom of the Elite. And with that being said, he is it's crazy. It's crazy. That's all I can really say. But once we get down to another character, it's going to tie in a lot to the story of him, but he ends up learning a lot about living life and being connected with people and being able to like learn how to have compassion for other people later on. But once we cover another name, we'll start to put things together and how that goes. And this review is mainly going to be a character review versus a season review, or an overall anime review, just because once we start to cover these kind of things, we'll be able to put them side by side and be able to make it to where we're covering everything about each character and get down to covering the seasons with each character. And because covering the seasons is going to end up letting me put way too many spoilers out. And like I said, this is a spoiler review, but I want to be able to cover the characters as well as much as possible. But back to Ayana Koji. He's by far his intellect is crazy, and his athleticism is even crazier. He's able to like hands down beat most of the like just anybody, and able to defend himself so well within the series. We end up knowing or learning that his father also owns the White Room facility that ends up affecting the later seasons, as we find out that his expulsion is being pushed by his father, to the point to where his father sins and takes over the school in a way by making one of the like almost kind of like the principal one of his people to be able to get Ayana Koji to drop out without much without it being pushed too hard and being noticed. So we'll move on to the next character, and our next character will be Suzune Horikita. So Suzune Horikita, she is, in my opinion, it hurts my feelings, but I love Horikita. Like, I think she is so beautiful. I think she wins all day. But the way the show ended with her, I'm sad. I was sad. It was ridiculous. She's very adamant, hard-headed, very standoffish, like I was saying earlier. And her older brother, she follows in the shadow of Manabu Horikita, and he's also the school student president, student council president, and he is like top tier. When I mean top tier. But he also has this, from what we've seen from the beginning of the shows or the season leading all the way to the end, we notice that she is like she's very much neglected and scolded by her brother, and like it almost makes you not really like him, but you see the development later on. She's very selfish to start off with. She has like a very interesting personality, and there's a lot of things that you end up noticing along the way that changes your opinion of her, because she wants friends. She's just so standoffish, and the way she had to live, to get to this point. And you see backstory throughout the show where she stayed to herself just to catch up to her brother, and she's just not able to make the mark. So she stays scolded by him, and all she wants to do is make her brother happy and to be accepted by her brother. And it's almost really sad to see that. She has such an awesome spirit. I love her. But she also, when she joins the class, she's also cautious about her money, and she takes a keen look at Ayana Koji, and almost, you could say, teams up with him throughout the duration of the show. Yes, they have their ups and downs, and they clash at the beginning. She's so standoffish, and she's so standoffish that she was actually set up to have a meeting with the next character we're about to talk to. She has a setup meeting with the next character, and by Ayana Koji, he did the setting up of the meeting, just so she could be able to get out there and reach and make some friends. But she definitely cannot stand like people. Like she is such a hermit, and like, so she's such a lone wolf that it's crazy. Her attitude is wild. She does scold her classmates. She does get kind of out of hand with how she says things, but over time, like I said, she's like by far one of the most dynamic characters in the show. Very pivotal, and she changes her ways and leaves her hypocritical behavior behind and changes for the good. So I like, she's awesome. She's awesome. I'd have to say character development in the show is very, very good. You'll enjoy it. And it's Horikita, or Suzune Horikita, because the way they do the given names and the last names. Suzune is very, very, very awesome. Very, very beautiful. And she handles everything kind of tough all the way up until the end. She has really good development. Just one of those, you gotta watch it. So on to the next, and the next one is going to be by far another crucial part of the show. So we're met with a very highly attractive and popular girl in Class D by the name of Kikyo Kushida. She's very, very, very upbeat, cheerful, soft-spoken and all that. And come to find out, in like episode 3 or 4, she is a bi. Jeez, like, she is so crazy. This girl crazy. Like, this is definitely, she flips the script. Voice changes. She's violent as hell. She's super like, oh, she's mean. Mean girl vibes all day. And she has a very manipulating side of her that's like crazy. As a matter of fact, when she had a burst out moment at the beginning of the series, we noticed she was going around like trying to be friends with everybody. As a matter of fact, this is the character that wants to set up the meeting with Suzune to be able to be friends with her. And then we notice in like either that same episode, she is standing at the dock, or I say the dock, she's standing at like the railing over the sea, the boardwalk. That's what we call it, the boardwalk. She's standing over the boardwalk, and she is screaming about her hatred for Suzune, screaming that she really hates. And then Kiyotaka is right there in the back listening, and when he notices, she calls him out and says, "Oh, I guess you've seen it." And wild thing is, she didn't know. We didn't know what was coming next. Well, then she was like, it was crazy. She was trying to find a way to be able to have him pinned up and not be able to release the information that he heard about how she's not really a sweetheart, how she's just just mean. Well, what she does to be able to ensure that he would not release such information, she grabbed his hand and placed it on her breast and made it to where she would call out or accuse him of rape if he was one to give out that kind of information about the hate. So, outside of that, she crazy. She's just crazy. We do end up learning that Suzune is by far Suzune is definitely like her like, oh, she has like this undying hate, and kind of find out it's because Suzune knows of her dark past of turning a whole school upside down, basically, by she wanted to be the center of attention. And this is something we learned way later in the show about Kikyo's past. Kind of find out she was always happy, cheerful. She just wanted attention, and with her being like, the center focal point of the class, and her last class as well, she just wanted everybody to love her, come to her, give her attention. And that's why she puts on the facade that she does, just so she can be sought out and people would just love her. Well, when people stopped caring about her, she leaked all of their news, all of their darkest secrets out on social media or a blog, and it ruined the class. And that is almost kind of what she was doing in this as well. But we also learned she has slight feelings and kind of like a little crush on Ayana Koji, but she just doesn't know how to come out about it because she's crazy. Over the course of the show, she does try to find ways to get Suzune expelled, and ultimately trying to get Ayana Koji expelled. That is very, 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 very crazy on how all that goes. And she actually betrays Class D a couple times throughout the show just to be able to punish both Ayana Koji and Suzune. So it's very wild on how everything goes down. She ends up teaming up with Class C's little the main guy from Class C, Ryuan. She teams up with him a couple times and is like under him to try to put a damper down on everything. So with Kikyo Kushida, she is a very, very, very wishy-washy character, and she was necessary. I really like the way they handled her character development. It was beautiful, only because you just never knew when the crazy side was going to come out and what was going to happen, or like what was going to happen out of that. So it's awesome. I can't, like, just 10 out of 10. They did so well on hers. I like all the character developments with every one of them. So you'll probably hear me say 10 out of 10 for like everybody, just because I like the way they did it. Even the lower supporting roles, they stuck out well. So on to the next, and we're moving on to supporting characters. Give a little bit and kind of cover about what they did for the story and for our progression in the series. The next is Aris Sakura. She is I hate to say this because all these people are in high school, but very, very beautiful. They're like straight waifu. And come to find out, she was a model, and she was, like, to say she's not who she is wild. Sakura is very weird and wild. she's wild. And not wild in like a crazy way. She's a very timid little girl who ends up finding herself in a predicament because she had a situation where she was being stalked because of her very steamy pictures she was taken for being a model. She's a photographer, and she actually is like part of the help of out of a case that happens because of her photography. She ends up being there for an incident for Ken Sudo, who we'll be covering later on, but she has a lot going on. She's for a support character. She ends up doing a lot of things to take care of a lot of stuff that is happening with her. With Sakura's issue, she ends up going through like a lot of different things with a lot of people like having an attraction to her due to her being beautiful, and on top of that, with her hidden, you could say, her past with her being a model. She ends up rejecting everybody that comes her way, and it's because she's, like I said, she's timid. She's very standoffish. She doesn't like to really talk much. Very humble, basically, and just very shy. She ends up being stalked by a guy who's working on her camera when her camera got messed up, and he tried to, assault her, and luckily she was saved out of that. But then once all that panned away, we just noticed that she's being more of a team player. She's still very timid, very just out there. She is awesome, and she also develops feelings for Ayana Koji as well. And she's just almost kind of like the little sister, really. And it's kind of what the stance she takes. But moving forward, once again, great character. I like her supporting role. It was really good. You just can't change how much was happening with her. It's great. I loved every last bit of her character design and what they did with her just for being a supporting character. So on to the next. Kei Karuizawa. She, by far, for story's sake, like the hottest chick in class. She develops I can't remember. Oh, I can't remember. It's like she ends up dating one of the top guys out of the class as well, and she was dating Hirata, a very stand-up guy, a very, very stand-up guy, like awesome guy to be exact. And what ends up happening, she thought she even thought Ayana Koji wasn't nothing due to the way that he started off. And she actually went through bullying to say that she's very popular. She was getting bullied. And along the way, she was actually set up. This is the crazy part. She ends up forming a bond with Ayana Koji. And it gets kind of weird because come to find out, Ayana Koji set her up to get bullied and waited until the last minute to come in and save her to be able to use her as a pawn. And then overall, she ends up, Kadorizara just has a very weird thing going on with her character development because she's just the top mean girl, kind of like, it's not really mean girl. She's just really popular. Doesn't really offer too much other than just being there and be able to use her popularity to be able to push things. That's really what she is. But she does have a very important part in the series because Ayana Koji goes to her just about for anything. And And this is the same character that Ayana Koji is actually starting to either develop feelings for, or show that he's able to be a human and be able to deliver and do things for her. And it's a beautiful thing. It goes on to without saying that Katorizawa is kind of what grounds him and makes him realize, or to kind of like break away from feeling like a machine. She gives the vibes to allow him to be more of a person, which overall is just awesome. Katorizawa also is the only one that reached out to him for his birthday, and he he returned the offer and bought her a gift, and she did the whole chocolate thing for Valentine's Day. They have such a cute relationship. It was good, and at one point, she was very jealous about a few other girls that she realized that started having a crush on Ayana Koji. It's crazy on how everything went. And what's crazy, she ends up confessing her love, or confessing her affection for Ayana Koji. And then Ayana Koji then confesses to her, and they eventually become an item, even though I wanted him, Ayana Koji, and Suzune to be together. I wanted that to be a thing. I want to ship them off. But to go back a little bit further, Katorizawa ends up dating Hirata just for protection purposes. They had this relationship just so she wouldn't get bullied, because she was dating the top guy in class D. So that definitely like puts out a lot about her little dark past of her getting bullied and everything way back in the gap. But the way the story tells it, she has by far a very interesting plot throughout the show, and her supporting role ends up carrying over, and just it does so much good for the show with how she does things. So, with that being said, the way that Kei Katorizawa ends up being able to mesh so well with how everything kicked off, being able to pull everybody, but then be able to pull everything away, and like everything focusing more on the relationship between her and Ayana Koji is priceless. It's priceless. Next is going to be something that actually ties in with Katorizawa, and definitely worth every last bit of the piecing up of everything. So, lightly covered, Yosuke Hirata. He ends up he dates Katorizawa for a while, and it's also like it was just a ploy to where they can be able to protect her from getting bullied. And he actually ends up he has a crazy dark past as well that comes out later in season 3. He ends up being like the bully himself, who just like tramples people, but it was for good reasons, which was it's a crazy situation. But he ends up being the bully because people weren't teaming up together, and they were like trying to trash and do somebody in. And that's kind of how Hirata works, and it's very admirable. He's a very kind-hearted person, and he only really wants everybody to get along. And he a couple times throughout the series, we see Hirata go through like those emotional moments where he feels like he's let the group down. And when he does, he usually goes to Ayana Koji to get some type of advice on pushing forward. And then he ends up putting it together on who Ayana Koji is towards the end of it to be able to like put perspective as, and he finds out who really is the mastermind behind Class D, which is like beautiful. It's just beautiful on how he does all that. And there's not really much on him other than that. He's a huge heavy figure within the show, but he does sit back seat to Ayana Koji as in like a lead male character in the show. But like I said, we still have more characters to cover, and then we're going to break down a little bit of what happens in between each episode or each season, really, and kind of go over what's going on. Our next character we have is Rikusuke Koenji. Very, very, very arrogant airhead. he's awesome. I guess the best way to put it, he's very egotistical, very, very tough to work with. Dude does not care what happens in the show. Like, he's just like, I'm me, deal with it. Like, he's crazy. Nothing really hurts him in the show, and that's what makes him a really good guy. Really, like, because anything that he does that's kind-hearted means that he really wants to do it, because he's not struggling for anything. His family, his money, he came from a prestigious family. There's really not much to say other than like he's Koenji. Like, that's really it. You know, if you know, you know. You just gotta watch it. It's a really good. He's a really good character. Like, nothing changes about him. You end up like really not liking him, but you end up liking him because the things he says and the things he does is just for good reasons, and he puts a strain and a good test on people who has to follow things because they're limited on ability of freedom, you could say. That's really about it on Koenji. There's other notable characters. He's just that wild card that's thrown in, but it's just love Koenji, just free spirit. Now we have Ken Sudo. Sudo is part of like the Three Stooges, Three Idiots. It's like him, Ike, and Yamuichi. Sudo is so sensitive, but he's such a fireball. And it was funny, he's redhead, but he is like most athletic person on the team, on the class, and he's out there. He's still overall a good guy. He's very brash, very, very rude. He comes off as that, but he means well. And you could kind of see towards like in the middle. You have Horikita trying to get him to like participate within things, and he's like low-key in love with Horikita, and it's awesome. It's all great. He's such a good guy. It's just, if you could get past him being so rough and so brash, he's a really, really good guy. And I'd have to say, like, he's like in my top 5 like characters. He's awesome. You just can't get past it. But outside of that, as far as Class D goes, he's the jock of Class D, and he really handles most of all the physical things that they go through. He almost got expelled like within season 1 due to a staged fight that occurred, and it was Horikita and Ayana Koji that actually saved them out of it. And his temper just gets the best of him, but for the most part, he makes it out. It's crazy. Oh, and then like the other time of his expulsion, where they were trying to peep into the girls' restaurant. It's ridiculous. You got to watch it. It's like almost a filler episode, but it's so worth it. Um, Kensudo, definitely one of the most memorable characters, just because of who his personality is, just awesome. But let's get on to the rest of them. Another member of the Three Stooges, we have a Kanji Ike. My man is just here. He's just here. He's the guy that is he low key has like a crush on Kikyo, and also he's like a badass when it comes down to camping. My man knew everything about camping during the little the camping special exam where they had to go out and survive. Very awesome. It was interesting, that kind of thing. There's not much to say on him. He's just that guy. He's just like in there. He's almost like a backup character or a background character, just there. We also have another one that follows that, but plays a role later on in the series. So let's check it out. So now we have Haruki Yamauchi. He is last of the idiots of Class D, part of Three Stooges. So he has a crush on both Kikyo and Sakura. It's interesting, very interesting. He ends up it's weird. He ends up doing some weird stuff. He actually gets expelled in season 3 when they go head to head with Class A in one of the exams. He ends up giving up, and he's up making a deal with Class A to be protected, and kind of find out he wasn't protected, and he ends up taking the brunt of it all, and he ends up getting expelled. They weren't able to save him, and that actually is what turned Hirata into a different character. We kind of see a lot of a development, and this was like one of the breaking points of Hirata. Hirata did not want anybody to get expelled, and then when Haruki got expelled, it really turned into like a lot of turmoil, because right before that there was a huge announcement given by Horikita that was basically saying it's okay to get rid of trash, and he really didn't like that because he's seen that as bullying and wanted to put it into that. But that's just like a little tidbit of the interactions within Class D, but it kind of gives like a little bit of background of what's going on with each character and their relations with each other. But as far as Yamauchi goes, that's really much about him. He did have that high point in there, but that's about it. So we're going to move on to our next character. So we have Teruhiko Yukimura. He's very interesting. My man has, he loves him some Suzune. That's Horikita. And he is super, super intelligent. He ends up participating in a lot of the class study groups that is throughout the series, just for the special exams. He does excel really well when it comes to any intellectual type situations. He did see a decline when he was during the sports special exam, and outside of that, he's still just a lovable character, just one of those individuals, just that kind of thing. Not really much too noticeable outside of that, but he's still a very good character. You just really can't get past it. But on to our last and final Class C member that is like with an actual name. There's a lot of filler characters that are there, but like that don't have names, but they do have these, and this actually wraps up our Class D named characters. So now we have Maya Sato. He, my boy Kiyotaka, Ayana Koji. It's sad, but Sato loves some Ayana Koji. Notices him from the event of or from the running event when he had to do the relay against the against Manabu Horikita, Suzune's older brother. And it was pretty interesting how everybody noticed him at that point, and she took a notice to him too, and actually asked him out on a date. They did a whole date within season 2 or season 3, and she was turned down, and it was pretty sad. But that was really all that she has in the show, is that another love interest that popped up. But that was really about it for her. It was kind of sad, but moving forward, that's the things we go through. There's a lot of different themes that are brought into perspective when it comes down to Classroom of the Elite. There's just so many things, and they bring a lot of romance and dating into it, and it makes sense because these kids are in high school. So moving forward, Maya's only point in the show is to just be a love interest that got rejected by Ayana Koji, and that was really it for Class D. That was our lineup for them. We're going to also cover a few notable characters from Class C, B, and A, and then that's about it. And then we might cover a couple. Now we're not going to cover the Falcon D members. Not really. So with that being said, let's move on to Class C. So in Class C, we're actually met with a little small host of characters. We have the leader, Ryuen, and we have Ibuki. They are the most notable characters really out of Class C that we end up seeing. So Ryuen, he is like a mafia boss style character who just kind of like just bullies all of anybody. He gets what he wants. He says it multiple times in the show. Whatever he wants, he's going to get it. So it's pretty awesome. I love it. And Ibuki's like really, really tough. Ibuki's like the right hand lady of Ryuen, and she ends up getting caught up in a lot of different things. She was actually used to do part of a scheme to ruin Class D. When they were on the special exam of being able to survive in the wilderness, she was the one that participated in trying to steal Class D's key card off of Horikita, and that's really about it. She comes back up later, but she's there's a lot of fight scenes that have to do with her, and she is like really, really skilled. And she actually tore up Suzune a little bit. She whipped her butt, like roundhouse kicked her. It was interesting. Outside of that, we do have Albert, big old Al. He's I swear it's so bad. I think he's like the only black guy in the show, but he's interesting. I love him. He's awesome. He literally just does whatever Ryuen says, and he beats everybody up. He tore everybody up. He's awesome. But outside of that, that was all of Class C. Class C did become Class D for a while because Class D moved up to Class C, but Class C, of course, went back down. Class C went back to being Class C, and Class D ended up going back to Class D towards the end of the series. And let's move on to Class B, which is amazing. This is by far one of the most amazing classes and of everything that's going on. So in Class B, we have Hanami Ichinose, Ryuji Kanzaki. So let's start off by saying Ichinose is by far one of the best female characters in the show. She is so awesome. She's so kind-hearted in everything. She's like a very nice breath of fresh air. She's awesome. She knows how to basically govern without fear. She brings all of Class B together to like be like almost like the strongest, really the most well put together group out of all the classes, because they didn't have any of those crazy fights, crazy everything. And it's all under Ichinose's care. She took care of everything. And you really, really can say that she did great. She didn't go too far off and did anything off the deep end. She did whatever she could to protect Class B at all costs, which is what I really, really like about her. She did not let anybody fall, and she is just does whatever she can for anybody. But of course, she also has like a slight crush on Ayana Koji. And it's dies off, but for the most part, right now Ayana Koji has a whole harem under him. He just has like a flock of women who are just like dying to be with him. And almost every anime has that. But Ichinose, it's interesting. It's interesting. She ends up finding out that Mr. Ayana Koji is the mastermind behind Class D, and she ends up confessing her feelings for Ayana Koji, and then later on, and she ends up getting rejected, and because he has a girlfriend, and the girlfriend is, of course, our beloved Kei Karuizara. But outside of that, moving forward, Ichinose also has a very weird thing that comes up throughout the show. We found out about her, I guess you could say, her deep sin. And her deep sin, unfortunately, was very selfless too. That's what's awesome about her. Her sin, you can say, came from her trying to do what she does best, and that is put other people before her. And what she does is, her younger sister liked this show, and the show had some type of like accessory outside the show, like a hair clip that was able to be bought and worn and adorned just like the character from out the show. And of course, she lived in a bad upbringing. Her mom barely made enough money, and what Ichinose did was she went and stole the hairpin, and then it went through all kinds of crazy stuff from there. But for the most part, Ichinose is one of those one-off mistakes kind of thing. But moving forward, she's still just an amazing, loving character. And then we have Ryuji Kanzaki, and he is just like the right-hand man of Ichinose. But unfortunately, we have this weird situation where Kanzaki is like, has a little love interest into Ichinose, but he doesn't express it due to being potentially rejected. Outside of all that, the Class B is just well put together. They didn't have too many names, but for the most part, it was just really hot to me. Ichinose and Ryuji Kanzaki that we've seen a lot of, and they had the most influence and most notable standpoints with names, of course. And now we are heading over to Class A. So in Class A, we are sitting at four notable characters. We're sitting at Ariso Sakayanagi, Kohei Katsuragi, Yahiko Totsuka, and Mayabe Nagumo. I really okay. So Arisu Sakayanagi is, oh man, she is whew, she's tough. Um, she is like the biggest, like she is like the main antagonist, you could basically say. She's actually on the cover with Ayana Koji, but she's like almost like side by side with him, really, on a lot of things, like almost his equal and equally matched in the thought process, the mind, how everything works, the intellect, just about everything, really, just about everything. And she is like the ultimate mastermind and does a lot of things to be able to put down anything that stands in her way. And they're kind of find out the chairman of the school board is her father, which is pretty cool, Mrs. Sakayanagi, which is like awesome. And her father is also an acquaintance of Ayana Koji's dad, which is pretty interesting. A lot of stuff is going on there that we end up finding out towards the end of season 2. Well, no, it's in the middle of season 3, where we get a little bit more of the backstory of this white room that is aforementioned inside of young Ayana Koji's life, or his past, really. And for the most part, the Sakayanagi usually goes head up with Ryuen for a long side, and it's pretty interesting. He ends up getting stomped most of the time, but their rivalry is pretty strong and is pretty lively. So it's always I like it. It's awesome. There's one thing that is brought up in season 3, and that is the fact that Miss Young Irisu, was also witnessing young Ayana Koji back when he was just an experiment in the white room. You had her and her father sitting up, watching over the glass, looking into the life of Ayana Koji, seeing him test and just witnessing how bright and smart this young man was. And they made a promise not to allow such a white room to exist anymore, to let everybody be free, kind of thing. It's pretty interesting. I like how they did that. But moving forward, let's get on to Kohei Katsuragi. Sakayanagi, by the way, is awesome. But before we move, she ends up being the chess match up against Mr. Ayana Koji himself, and that resulted in a flat fall because of some interesting situations that you'd have to just watch to see. I would hate to just keep spoiling a bunch of different plot points, but definitely go watch it. It's towards the end of season 3 where you'll see this situation play out. Definitely go take a look at that. And Katsuragi, very, very, very intelligent man. He wants to get on student council with Manabu, but for some reason he keeps on getting rejected. We never find that out, but maybe in season 4 we might see something. You never know. Just stay tuned with that. And then we have Yahika Totsuka. So Totsuka is part of the Katsuragi faction. Totsuka ends up getting expelled towards the end of season 2, I believe, and he was definitely used as like a little lamb. He was the right hand man of a Katsuragi, so there is that. There's really not much to say on that. He filled in that, and then that was it. So let's move to the final member of Class A, and that is the new student council president. That is Mayabi Nagumo. He is such a brat. Oh, and when this man drops the hammer, he drops the hammer, and he wants to get stuff done. He has a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. He's very, very cunning. He has a lot of intellect behind him, a lot of planning, a lot just a lot of things that like make the wheels go round. It definitely pulls the show in a different direction when he finally makes his appearance. And that is because we see the stepping down of Manabu Horikita. So there is that. There's really not much on him, and that's really all of the other classes and the members that are just notable within them. So let's move on to the beloved student council, and then we'll cover a little bit of the small events that has happened in between. So we have Manabu Horikita, which is, of course, the older brother of Suzune Horikita. He is the student council president, and he also seems very, very mean to Suzune throughout most of the show. And it isn't until the end where we find out his true feelings and how all that plays out. And it was definitely worth the watch to see how that played out. Very heartfelt, very worth seeing. And this is something that you will only catch at the end of season 3. So once again, check this out. It's one of the top animes, in my opinion, when it comes down to something to make your mind boggle and keep it racking and like moving. It's worth it. Give it a shot. We also have Akane Tachibana, which is the right-hand man of a lady to Manabu, and she ends up seeing she almost gets expelled, and he ends up being able to save her, I want to say. But outside of that, that was really all of the characters, and for each class, and extra characters. So moving forward, let's get to the stuff that happens throughout the course of the show. We are missing some of the faculty members. We have Sai Chasha Bashira. That is the Class D teacher. She's the Class D instructor, and she is very, very mean, very witty, and she keeps the kids on their toes. There's really much you can really say about that, and we can leave that at that. She's also like the in between of kind of letting know Ayana Koji that he's potentially going to get expelled, or like just anything that comes up. She is very, very, very involved with her class, and not really. She ends up having a soft spot and trying to get them up to the top. And then we have Chai Hoshinamaya, Class B instructor. And she is so weird and is a drunk. She is wild. And she is awesome, though. She is awesome. She's awesome. There's not much that goes on within the anime other than she pops up and here and there and says her little things, and she just stays the drunk teacher kind of thing, which is pretty interesting. And then we have Chairman Saki Yanagi, which is, of course, we covered that. That is the interesting father of Arisu. So that's really the moment for that. And then we have Tsukishiro Tokinari, which is the temporary new chairman of the school. And he is the butt of the situation that comes out of nowhere to get Mr. Ayana Koji to drop out of school. And that's really it for that. And then we have Professor Ayana Koji, which is Kiyotaka Ayana Koji's dad. And moving forward, let's get into small plot points and the most notable things that did occur in the show. And then we'll wrap up this episode. So in this whole series, we have a lot of notable things that do occur. For starters, a lot of special exams occur that normally leads to expulsion. We've seen the likes of the wilderness, going out, surviving in the wilderness. We also seen a lot of the paper paper swaps, or I'm probably saying it wrong, but they come out with different quizzes and like I won't say it's called paper swap. I know I'm wrong. You have the sports exam, and then you have the final exam, which is I want to say paper swap. I know it's not paper swap, but we're gonna call it paper swap. Where it's just a lot of stuff that's going on within the show, and a lot of exams, and then you have all the inner workings where you just see a lot of development within our characters here, and we have a pretty good roster of characters. And what's pretty good about it is their character development is just really good and priceless, and something worth watching again because of how much the plot thickens. And then next thing you know, there's a flashback that shows something else that just got some other exposition drop that you just didn't know about yet, and then it finally made sense of why such and such happened. It's the show's good, show's beautiful. I can't complain about how good and how well presented it was. It always had me on edge to hit the play next. And I'd have to say, as far as my favorite part, I'd have to go off the last paper swap where each class chose or it was more like a lottery kind of deal where they chose like 13 subjects, and then out of those 13 subjects, it chose some more. And then when they got to trying to pick which class had what, it just made a huge diverse on how all that would play out. And I'd have to say this show is worth every last bit of it. I love it. It was worth binging. Me and my kid watched it, and she enjoyed every last bit of it as well. And moving forward, this is just one of those animes that you just can't pass up. Put this on your list. This is Classroom of the Elite. It's on Crunchyroll. I don't know if it's on Netflix. I don't know if it's on Hulu. It's just one of those. Just one of those sleepers that nobody really ever talks about, and it is worth every last second of watching. So, with that being said, I have to say, class is dismissed. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and taking a deep dive into Classroom of the Elite. So, make sure you do your homework, check out this anime, and also, we have way more coming out. And I know it's been a while. We haven't had an episode in like maybe a little bit over a month. But I promise you, this is purely getting resource material and being able to watch and being able to like still be a part of the community. So definitely check this out. Enjoy yourself. And until next time,